You ever have one of those moments where your whole life just stops, like you're standing still, but the world keeps spinning and all you can think is, WTF just happened to me? That was me. The morning my wife vanished. No warning, no text, no call, just gone. But let me back up. A year ago, Camille and I had been married for 4 years. We lived in a quiet Denver suburb, had a nice little two-bedroom house with a stupidly high mortgage, but we were happy. Or so I thought. We met in college. She was this bubbly marketing major who somehow always had the right thing to say, the kind of girl who made waiters laugh and had 10 Instagram besties. I was the opposite introverted engineer type, not exactly the life of the party. But we clicked. She said I grounded her. I thought she brought color into my grayscale life. Cringe, now I know. After we got married, we started talking seriously about having kids. Names, nurseries, Pinterest boards, all of it. Every time she'd send me baby stuff on Instagram, my chest would get tight in the best way. Like, damn, we're really doing this. Except we weren't. 6 months into trying, nothing was happening. We saw a specialist, did the tests. I still remember the doctor's face when he told me, Ethan, your sperm count is extremely low. Like he was apologizing for telling me my dog died. Camille squeezed my hand in the car ride home and said, "It's okay. It doesn't change anything." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. 3 months later, she stopped talking about babies altogether. I thought maybe she needed time to process. Hell, I needed time to process. I went through a quiet depression, guilt, shame. Like I'd failed as a man or something. I signed up for therapy, started jogging, tried to be better. Meanwhile, Camille changed. Subtle at first. She started staying out later, got weirdly into Pilates, kept her phone face down all the time. I asked once, everything good between us? She smiled and said, don't be paranoid. I let it go. Because apparently I was an idiot. 6 months ago, she told me she was going on a girls' trip to Sedona, Arizona. Camille had done trips before Palm Springs, Charleston, so it didn't feel weird. She even had an itinerary printed out. Yoga brunch spa day. I helped her pack, dropped her at the airport, gave her a kiss. She said thank you for being so supportive. Now that one should have tipped me off. It felt final, like a goodbye in disguise. Her flight was at 5 p.m. I tracked it, landed on time. I texted her at 9 p.m. Hey babe, how's the hotel? No response. An hour passed, then 2, then 5. By morning, I was panicking. I called, went to voicemail, texted again, nothing. Around noon, I messaged her sister. Have you heard from Cam? She replied, no, I thought she was with you. I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. Next, I called one of her so-called girls' trip friends, Rachel. She was at a damn farmer's market in Boulder. I was like, wait, aren't you supposed to be in Sedona? And she hit me with, Camille's not on a trip with us. Silence. I swear my heart physically dropped into my gut. That afternoon, I drove back home in a daze. Her closet was half empty, jewelry box gone. Favorite hoodie missing. She'd packed for leaving, not a weekend getaway. I sat on the couch and just stared at the wall for like 4 hours. No calls, no notes, just silence. She was gone. And the worst part, I had no F***ing idea why. 3 weeks later, still nothing. I checked all our credit cards. Last charge was an Uber to DIA. No hotel bookings, no flights out of the country. Nada. Camille had ghosted me harder than a college situationship. I filed a missing person report even though deep down I knew she wasn't missing. She was gone. On purpose. Her parents were shocked, but also weirdly neutral. Her mom kept saying maybe she just needed space. What kind of married adult needs space like that? I checked her socials. Dead. No posts, stories gone, TikTok deleted. Like she'd wiped herself off the face of the internet. Meanwhile, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. My friends tried to drag me out to play pool or grab a drink, but all I could think was I that easy to leave? Then came the spiral, the what ifs. What if I had pushed harder for IVF? What if I hadn't taken that coding boot camp and worked late so much? What if I'd just been more? I played back every argument, every birthday dinner, every F***C King Target run, trying to find a sign I missed. But the truth? Camille had checked out long before her trip. I was just too blind or too in love to see it. And then, things started to shift. Therapy helped. A lot. Shout out to Dr. Patelman was a legend. He helped me stop trying to solve a puzzle that wasn't mine to fix. I started jogging again. Went back to my old hobbies, woodworking, podcasts, random books I never finished. Eventually, the silence stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like peace. I wasn't okay, but I was surviving. And for a while, I really thought that was the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. Because last Saturday morning, I opened my front door, and there she was, Camille, holding a baby. I swear for a second I thought I was dreaming. I blinked again. But no, it was her, Camille, standing on my porch like she hadn't ghosted me a year ago, and in her arms a baby, a tiny, wriggly, squirmy baby in a navy blue onesie. She smiled like nothing had happened, like she hadn't nuked our entire marriage and disappeared into thin air. I couldn't even speak. My mouth opened, but no words came out. And she said it, with zero shame. "Hi," she said. "Can I come in?" The audacity, the actual nerve. I looked her dead in the eye and said no. You can stay right there and explain. She looked caught off guard, like she expected me to roll out the red carpet and offer her a latte. But she didn't fight me on it. Just nodded, shifted the baby to her other hip, and said, "I know this is a shock." "Oh, you think?" She started rambling. Something about how she made a mistake, how she needed space, how she didn't know how to talk to me about what she was going through. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to keep my face neutral, but inside, I was boiling. This woman dipped out of my life like I was an expired coupon. Left no note, didn't call, didn't even have the decency to tell me she wanted out. And now, here she was talking about a second chance like she forgot the first one came with wedding vows. And then she looked down at the baby, smiled, like we were some happy little family, and said, "This is our second chance. I want us to raise him together." That was the moment my stomach dropped. Because for a fraction of a second, I almost believed her. Almost wondered if she'd gone through IVF or something without telling me. But then reality kicked in like a steel-toed boot. There was no way that kid was mine. None. Still, I asked the question. "Whose kid is that, Camille?" She bit her lip. Looked at the ground. Classic Camille maneuver when she's trying to dodge accountability. I left because I wanted to be a mom," she said. "You know how badly I wanted that." "Yeah, I did, but I also knew she left me out of that decision." "So you found someone who could give you that," I said flatly. She nodded, eyes glassy. "It wasn't like that at first. It just happened. And he's not in the picture anymore. He left. I've been on my own since." I couldn't even look at her. I stared past her over her shoulder like if I focused hard enough on the neighbor's hedge, I'd disappear from this entire situation. And she kept going. "I thought about you. Every day. I realized I made a huge mistake. I still love you, Ethan, and I know this doesn't fix everything, but maybe we can start over." I let out a breath, sharp, short, loud. "Camille, you didn't just make a mistake. UF*C King left. You lied. You vanished. And now you think showing up with a baby and a sob story means we just reset." She flinched like she didn't expect me to snap. "Tough *T. You think I didn't suffer?" She shot back suddenly. "I was scared, alone. He left me when I was 4 months pregnant. Do you know what that felt like?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so insane I couldn't process it any other way. "Oh, you want to play the victim now?" I asked. "You dipped out on your husband, lied to everyone, got pregnant with some rando, and now you want me to clean up the mess. Screw that." She started crying, right there on my porch. Ugly crying too. Red face, snot hiccups. I felt nothing. That was the scariest part. A year ago, seeing her cry would have broken me. I'd have wrapped her up in a blanket, made tea, promised her everything would be okay. Now I just felt free. She held the baby tighter, rocking him. "Please," she whispered, "he needs a father." "Then you should have thought about that before blowing up your marriage," I said. "I'm not a consolation prize." I was about to close the door when something snapped inside her. Like she realized the tears weren't working. Suddenly, she got mad. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "I could have divorced you and taken half of everything you know. The house, the savings. That's still legally half mine." My jaw tightened. There it was. The mask slipping. The real Camille showing her face. Oh, so now you want to play the entitled X card, I said. Go ahead. Call your lawyer. Just be ready for mine. She went quiet. Real quiet. Then she whispered, I thought you'd at least care about him. I looked down at the baby. He was staring up at me, chubby cheeks, big brown eyes. Innocent, blameless, but not mine. I said as calmly as I could, I don't know that kid, and you don't get to use him to manipulate me. Then I closed the door. I didn't slam it, just closed it with a click. Final, sharp, clean. I stood there in the hallway for a minute, heart pounding in my chest, fist clenched. I didn't even know what I was feeling. Rage, relief, grief. Maybe all of it. She stayed out there for a while. I heard her pacing, muttering. Eventually she left. But she wasn't done. The next morning I got a text from her mom. Camille told me she saw you yesterday. I know things are complicated, but the baby is innocent. Maybe you two can talk things through. I didn't respond. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. 3 hours later, Camille showed up again. No warning, just knocked like we were still in some rom-com reunion scene. This time, I didn't even open the door all the way. She launched into some new monologue about forgiveness and family and finding her way back. It was so rehearsed I half expected her to pull out cue cards. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. I'm willing to forgive you for how you reacted yesterday. Forgive me, I almost choked. I stepped outside. Closed the door behind me so she couldn't look into my house. Camille, I said, let me make something real clear. You don't get to forgive me. You blew up our life. You made every choice. And now you're dealing with the fallout. She tried to interrupt. I kept going. I spent a year picking up the pieces of the mess you left behind. I cried over you. I blamed myself. I begged the universe for answers. And while I was doing that, you were building a new life without me. So, no, I don't want your forgiveness. I want your distance. She stood there stunned. Then came the waterworks again, and I just turned around and went inside. Didn't look back, didn't feel guilty. That night, I went online and ordered a DNA test kit. Not for me, but for legal peace of mind. If she ever tried to drag me into some custody drama or claim child support, I was going to be ready. A week later, she left a letter in my mailbox. Long, rambling apology. Said she missed our life, that she regretted everything, that she just wanted a safe place again. I didn't reply, because I finally understood something that took me way too long to learn. Closure isn't something you get from other people. It's the door you close yourself. And I'd already locked mine. I thought that was it. She'd come back. I shut the door. Game over. The end. But Camille didn't get the message. The next week, I started getting calls. Random numbers. One from her dad. Then a couple of her old friends I hadn't heard from in years. All saying the same *T, just in different flavors. She's trying Ethan. You were married once. Doesn't that mean something? The kid's innocent. Come on, man. Be the bigger person. Bigger person. I was already mountains taller than her when I didn't blast her on social media the second she left. I stayed quiet. I didn't post any angry F***CK my ex-wife stories. I didn't leak her disappearance. I didn't out her for having a baby with some loser and then crawling back when he bailed. But if they kept pushing me, that silence had an expiration date. Meanwhile, the DNA test came back. Negative. Obviously. But I printed it anyway. 3 copies. One for my safe one, for my lawyer one, just to hold in my hand and feel the truth in black and white. 0% probability of paternity. Seeing it felt like I'd dropped a 100-pound weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. And right then I decided I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to move smarter, cleaner, stronger. I'd spent a year broken. I wasn't doing that again. So I got my legal ducks in a row. Called my lawyer Emily a shark in a pantsuit. Told her the full story. She raised an eyebrow and said, "You know she's not entitled to a damn thing unless you let her be." Music to my ears. Camille had never filed for divorce. Neither had I. In Colorado, we were technically still married, but I wasn't playing the passive nice guy anymore. We filed immediately. On my terms. No spousal support, no property claims, no shared assets. Full legal statement that I was not the father of that child. Camille didn't respond to the papers for almost 3 weeks. Then one day I got a knock. A courier. She'd filed a counterclaim, wanted partial equity in the house compensation for emotional hardship, and wait for it. a mediation about co-parenting. I actually laughed, out loud, alone in my kitchen. She really thought she could legally force me into fatherhood based on what vibes. Emily and I went full offense, submitted the DNA test, presented her initial disappearance timeline, texts from her friends confirming she lied about the trip, testimonies from her own damn sister who admitted Camille had been acting off for months. We had receipts, literal and digital. Camille. She had crocodile tears and delusion. By the time mediation rolled around, she looked tired, worn, still pretty, but in that I cry in the shower kind of way. Her lawyer looked equally miserable, probably realized 5 minutes in that their client was a hot mess express with no track record of sanity. The mediator, older woman, no nonsense, opened the folder with the test results and sighed. This makes things pretty straightforward. Camille tried to interject. Said something about attachment and how the baby saw me as a father figure. I cut her off. He doesn't even know my name. She went red. I kept my tone calm. You disappeared for a year, left me to think you were dead. You only came back because the guy you ran off with left you. This is not a reunion. This is cleanup. The mediator blinked, nodded once, and that was that. That night, I poured myself a drink. Not because I was celebrating, but because I was finally free to feel everything. The loss, the humiliation, the slow, bitter relief. It wasn't just a divorce. It was an exorcism. And still, she didn't stop. 2 weeks later, Camille went online. Instagram. New account. Public. Captioned a photo of her holding the baby. Single mama. Learning to be strong again. Tag hash, he left us hash. Starting over hash, truth hurts. I stared at the screen for a full minute before the rage hit. She was trying to control the narrative. Paint herself as the abandoned, heartbroken woman raising a baby alone. The irony. She was abandoned by the guy she cheated with. And I was just the guy who refused to be her backup plan. I considered going online, posting screenshots, sharing the test results, blasting her in the comments. But I didn't. Instead, I sent one DM. No words, just a PDF of the DNA test. And then I blocked her, and I waited. Within 24 hours, she took the post down. Guess she didn't want her new followers asking who the deadbeat dad was if the real dad wasn't even me. A couple days later, a mutual friend reached out. Said Camille was really going through it. She was back living with her parents. No job, trying to sell brand deals on TikTok with parenting advice, but nobody was biting. Some comments on her stuff were already calling her out. Apparently, the baby's father guy she ran off with had ghosted her completely. Moved to Oregon, had a new girlfriend. Poetic justice. But still, something about it didn't sit right. I wasn't satisfied. Not fully. So I made a quiet move. I called a podcaster. A friend of a friend runs a show about real-life ghost stories. Not supernatural ones. The other kind. Divorce, betrayal, vanishing spouses, that stuff. I told him the story. Everything. He interviewed me anonymously, changed names, altered a few locations. But the core was real. Episode title, The Wife Who Went on a Girls' Trip and Never Came Back. It went viral. People loved it. Reddit picked it up. Threads exploded. The comments. She thought she could come crawling back with a baby. Hell no. This is why you get the paternity test, fellas. My man dodged a bullet the size of a minivan. Karma's name is Emily, and she wears a suit. Camille never knew it was me, but I'm pretty sure she suspected. A week later, she deleted her TikTok. Her Insta went private. Her healing blog disappeared. Guess it's hard to sell self-growth when your entire rebrand was built on a lie. And me. I started breathing again. Not all at once. Not some big dramatic inhale of clarity. But slowly, quietly. Like my body was finally releasing tension it had held for too long. I wasn't just done with Camille. I was cleared of her. Her mess wasn't mine anymore. I went back to work. Got a raise. Took a solo trip to Seattle just to walk Pike Place Market and drink coffee by the bay like some indie movie character trying to find peace. And weirdly, it worked. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just options. Possibilities. People who didn't see me as a backup plan or a sperm donor or a safety net. Just me, Ethan. The last text I ever got from Camille said this: "One day you'll realize you gave up on something real." I didn't reply, just archived it. Because she was right. One day, I did realize something. Not that I gave up on something real, but that she never was. It's funny how silence hits different after a storm. You spend so long bracing for the next blow, next knock on the door, next guilt trip voicemail, and then one day, nothing comes. No calls, no texts, no flying monkeys from her social circle trying to change your mind. Just quiet. And it doesn't feel eerie. It feels earned. A month after the podcast episode dropped, I was officially divorced. Clean paperwork. No financial ties, no legal obligations. No more what-if loopholes. I'd already moved Camille's stuff to a storage unit months earlier. She never came to get it. Eventually, I gave the key to her sister and told her the rent expires in 60 days. After that, it's the dumpster's problem, not mine. She never picked it up. I think that was the final symbolic moment for me. Like her literally leaving the last pieces of herself behind and me being the one to throw it all out. There's something healing about closing a storage unit door and walking away. It's not cinematic, but it's real. That same week, I went back to the climbing gym. Camille used to hate it. Said the chalk made her skin dry, said it was too loud, too grungy. But I'd always loved it. Something about the focus it takes to reach for that next hold, the balance between tension and flow. There was a woman there, first-timer, struggling on a beginner route. She fell, laughed, said I suck at this, and sat down on the mat. I smiled and said, "You're not supposed to be good yet. That's why it's fun." We ended up talking for an hour. Just talking. No pressure, no expectations. Her name was Alina. She was in UX design. Loved indie board games and horror podcasts. Had this sarcastic little smirk and cursed like a sailor in traffic. We exchanged numbers. That was it. No fairy tale. No sparks flying and fireworks and instant soulmate nonsense. Just a good, normal adult moment between two people who weren't pretending to be anything. And after everything I'd been through, that felt revolutionary. Camille faded even more after that. Someone sent me a screenshot of a private Facebook post she made in some single moms group. She was venting about how some people can't handle responsibility, how they ran when things got hard, and how she was left to raise a child alone because men never step up. Classic projection. I didn't reply, didn't react. I just stared at it for a second, let the anger bubble, then shut the tab and got back to work. There's a power in not engaging. And yeah, that's the real revenge. Not the viral story, not the blocked calls, not even the court win. It's the day she realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was indifferent. Alina and I started hanging out more. Nothing serious. Just hikes, coffee, terrible movies, board games. She came over one night and brought an actual PowerPoint presentation titled Reasons Why Ethan Should Stop Drinking Store-Bought Cold Brew and Make His Own. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. That night after she left, I sat on my couch alone and felt something strange. It wasn't loneliness. It was peace. Not dramatic, not tear-jerking. Just the quiet kind that shows up when no one's watching. And I realized that's what I'd been chasing all along. Not justice, not revenge, not closure from Camille. Just my F***ing peace. That summer, Camille popped back up again. Not in person, thank God. She emailed me. Subject, please read. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. It was long, rambling, classic her. About how she was in therapy, how she was growing, how she didn't expect anything but just wanted me to know that she sees things differently now. She said she understood why I was angry, why I pushed her away. She also said she hoped one day her son could meet the man she used to love. That last part hit weird. Not because I wanted it, but because it showed me she still didn't get it. She still saw herself as the protagonist. The wounded phoenix rising from the ashes. And me just some chapter she hoped to repurpose for emotional credit. I didn't reply, but I did sit there for a while staring at the screen, wondering how two people who used to fall asleep holding hands could end up here. Then I archived it. Again. A few weeks later, I got invited to speak on a panel at a local tech event. Nothing huge, just a side stage deal about team management and burnout. I hesitated at first. I'd always been more behind the scenes. Camille had been the social one. But I said yes. Wore a blazer. Spoke my truth. Didn't try to impress anyone. Just shared what I'd learned how to lead without breaking yourself. How to rebuild when everything crashes, how to stop confusing being needed with being valued. The Kuanda was lit. Someone came up to me after and said, that was the most human tech talk I've ever heard. It meant something. Not because I needed validation, but because it felt like me again. Not the broken husband, not the guy she left. Just Ethan. Whole, flawed, standing tall. Alina was there too. She winked at me during the talk. Brought me a cupcake after. We sat on a bench outside and shared it even though I told her I don't like frosting. She asked, "Do you think you'll ever talk to her again?" I knew who she meant. I didn't even hesitate. "No," I said, "I'm good." She nodded like she already knew the answer, then leaned her head on my shoulder. It was quiet, not romantic, just stillness. And after everything, the lies, the baby, the knock on the door, the endless spiral of what did I do wrong, that stillness. That was worth more than any revenge. A few days ago, I found an old picture of Camille and me, one of those cheesy ones from a photo booth. We were drunk laughing, her lipstick smudged my eyes half closed. I almost threw it out, almost. But then I slid it into a drawer instead, not out of sentimentality, not because I missed her, but because it doesn't haunt me anymore. It's just a photo, just a moment. And that chapter, it's closed, not with a bang, but with a whisper, not back. Forward. It had been 6 months since I last heard from her. Camille, I mean. Life had finally settled. I'd hit a rhythm, the kind of boring, beautiful rhythm you don't realize you miss until you have it again. Work, gym, climbing, occasional weekend trips with Alina. Nothing dramatic, nothing broken. Just days that felt like mine again. Then last week I got a call from an unknown number, Colorado area code. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. Hello. There was a pause, then a tired voice. Hi, Ethan. I recognized it immediately. Camille's mom. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. Yeah, what's going on? She sighed, like this call had been sitting heavy on her chest for a while. I know this is unexpected, she said, and I promise I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. There it was, the setup. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the ceiling. She's not okay, her mom continued. Camille. Things have been hard, financially, emotionally. She's struggling. I didn't say anything, just waited. She got evicted a few weeks ago, she added. She and the baby have been staying with us again, but it's not sustainable. And she's been talking about reaching out to you. I sighed, not angry, just exhausted. She already did, I said, a few months ago, email. I ignored it. I figured she had, her mom said softly. Look, I'm not calling to defend her. God knows I've told her she made a mess of things. But that little boy, he didn't ask for any of this. He deserves better than what she's giving him right now. There was a pause, and then quietly, she's talking about dropping him off with CPS. I sat up straight. What? She thinks she can't do it anymore. She's overwhelmed. No job, no partner, no income. And honestly, I don't think she's bluffing. I swallowed hard. He's not my son, I said, legally, emotionally, biologically. I made that clear. I know, she said. And I'm not asking you to take him. I didn't know who else to call. You were the closest thing to family that boy ever had, even if it was only for 5 minutes. I stared out the window. The sky looked too bright for this kind of conversation. Has she actually contacted CPS, I asked. No, not yet, but she's close. Then that's her responsibility, I said slower this time. Not mine. There was silence. Then she sighed. I understand. And that was it. We hung up. The rest of that day, I couldn't shake the image Camille frantic and drowning, holding a baby she couldn't handle, ready to hand him off to strangers. I wanted to ignore it, to write her off like I'd done before. But it stuck, like a splinter in my chest. Because, yeah, that kid wasn't mine. But he also didn't deserve to be collateral damage. And as much as I wanted to shut it out, some small part of me still remembered the man I was. The man who dreamed of being a dad. The man who'd once looked at cribs and onesies and middle names. Not for him, but still. So I made a call. Not to Camille. To Emily, my lawyer. What happens if she gives him up, I asked. Like legally. Emily didn't miss a beat. If she surrenders custody voluntarily, he goes into foster care unless a relative steps forward. And if no one does, then he stays in the system. Can someone outside the family step in? Emily paused. Technically, yes. Through kinship or emergency placement. But why are you asking Ethan? I hesitated. I don't want to adopt him, I said. I don't. But if he ends up with strangers, that'll haunt me. Emily was quiet for a second, then said, let me look into it. I'll call you tomorrow. That night I told Alina. She didn't freak out. Didn't accuse me of backsliding into Camille's mess. She just listened. Really listened. When I was done, she asked, "Do you want to save the kid, or do you feel guilty for not being able to?" That one hit. Hard. "I don't know," I admitted. "Both, maybe." She nodded slowly. "Just make sure whatever you decide, you're doing it for you. Not to fix her. Not to punish yourself. Not because someone thinks you're supposed to." I stared at her. "You're kind of scary when you're wise." She smiled. "I know." Emily called the next day. "Okay," she said. "So here's the deal. You can't just show up and say, 'I'll take the kid.' You'd have to apply through emergency placement, probably foster first. But I have a name. A name. A friend of mine. Family attorney. She works with emergency situations like this. She could fast-track it if that's something you seriously want to explore." I didn't answer right away. My mind flashed through every version of this me with a toddler, me explaining to friends how I got here, me taking care of a child who shares DNA with the woman who detonated my life. It made no sense. And somehow, it made complete sense. "Give me her number," I said. A week later, I met the boy. Not through Camille, not in her house, but at a neutral child services facility. Quiet little office, bright toys, warm lighting. Still smelled faintly like old crayons. He was smaller than I imagined, shy, curled into himself, gripping a worn-out stuffed animal. When I sat across from him, he just stared. Didn't smile, didn't cry, just stared. "Hi," I said gently. "My name's Ethan." No response. "That's a cool dinosaur you've got." Still nothing. But I stayed. For an hour, just existed near him, played with a couple blocks, didn't force it. When I got up to leave, I said, "I don't know if I'll see you again. But if I do, I'll bring cookies." "Deal." He blinked. Then, and I swear I almost broke, he nodded. Tiny, barely perceptible, but real. I didn't tell Camille I saw him. Didn't reach out. Didn't explain myself. Because this wasn't about her anymore. She made her choices. She burned her bridges. She gave up everything and expected someone else to carry the pieces. This wasn't pity. This wasn't penance. It was mine, my decision. And I hadn't made it yet. Not fully. But something in me had shifted. Again.